Ready, MRod? 10 seconds. 10 seconds.
Oh!
All right. We're coming live. Let's hit that intro. All right, everybody. Good evening. It's your host, Moose. Buc'ing Hangover, week 13 of the NFL season. It's a Victory Wednesday night here for the Buc'ing Hangover. Coming to you live, of course. Big welcome if you're a first-time watcher. Of course, we've got our contact information scrolling down below. We've got kind of our live ticker of some Buccaneers stats and contact info. Then, of course, up top, if you're new, we'll have the ticker for our current topics. Of course, big welcome to our podcast listeners as well. As you now know, we are doing live podcasts that we release the next day. You'll find them where you can find podcasts normally. So your Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you can find us really easily, and Google Podcasts as well. So again, make sure you're watching us live on YouTube. Either we'll sometimes do pre-recorded live shows. Tonight we're doing a live show. Or you can listen to our podcast that we release the next day, again on Apple, Spotify, and on Google Podcasts. It's our favorite time of the week. Let's bring in the co-host. He's here this week. It's MRod. How's it going, MRod? I can see your camera is not loving us today. Let's see if we can expand that.
But sweet, thank you for doing that. But yeah, everything's going good. Another Buccaneers win, so that's always an exciting thing. For our live viewers, I apologize about the camera. Little technical issue here. Not sure what's going on, but I heard you rambling on. It seems like there's a lot of options to watch our show.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at least we'll have the audio. If your camera is for some reason zooming in on Tom Brady's number, so I'm not sure what's going on with your camera, but that's fine. We got the audio at least. I guess they really want you to focus on Tom Brady there. I'm not sure what's going on with that. But again, welcome to the Buc'ing Hangover, our live Buccaneers reaction show, and then we usually preview the next week as well. Lots to talk about. Are the Bucs on a winning streak, Mike? I think we were going back and forth. What defines a streak? Is a streak 3?
Yeah, Bucs won 2 in a row. Moose is over here saying they're on a winning streak.
We're on a winning streak. I just want to be positive.
I was always brought up under the I was always under the impression that a winning streak meant 3. The Bucs just won 2 wins in a row. I wouldn't necessarily say is a winning streak, but wishful thinking is good. Maybe after we manhandle the Colts here, maybe we might have a winning streak by my definition.
Of course, we'll talk about the Colts a little bit later in the show, but let's get right at it. Let's get right at talking about our matchup with Nick Foles and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Leonard Fournette among some of their stars, kind of having a down year this year. I think big expectations were put on Nick Foles, and he was injured immediately, and then Minshew mania hit. I'd put that right up there with Fitzmagic mania that we had last year in Tampa. But of course, we have our game leaders. Not really big stats for Jameis Winston, 21 of 33 for 268. It's his first game in a little bit that he's been under 300. I think the big number there, though, MRod, is 0 interceptions. 0 interceptions for Jameis Winston.
Yeah, looking at your board behind you on your Winston interception count. Looks like you don't have to change it this week, so that saved you some time.
Did not have to erase anything at all. We kept it at 20. He did have a lost fumble, though. I might have to split that up and maybe keep it a total turnovers. I don't know if it was the broadcast last week or this week where they said that he reached his 101st turnover of his career, like in the his 5-year tenure, which is the most by far in that same time period.
Oh wow.
So over 100 turnovers on Jameis, but we're gonna talk about good things today. He's been looking pretty good, especially with the shape our offensive line has been in recently, at least. We'll talk a little bit about our offensive line later in the show because that's still an area of improvement for our team. So, looking at the game, and let me get some of the stats ready here on screen number 2. I think one of the breakout stars and kind of someone I forgot to put on what went well when we talk about what went well in the game. Brashad Perriman leading
Oh yeah.
the receiving corps with 87 yards. Of course, no touchdowns by the air for this game, but 5 for 87. This is a performance we've been wanting to see all year from him.
Yeah, I mean, we brought him in as a number 3 receiver. He's a former number one, not number one, but a former first round pick by the Ravens. So he always had high expectations coming in. He never lived up to any of the hype. I know the first couple of years he kind of battled some injuries there. Um, but yeah, we definitely brought him in to kind of replace Adam Humphries there on that in that slot. And he finally showed up and did what we were hoping he would do all year. So hopefully he keeps it up. Has a third weapon there for Jameis Winston to kind of alleviate, because like we were going over last week, that Godwin and Evans are easily over 1,000 yards this year, and the next leading receiver was like 270 yards
So
or something
OJ
like that.
Howard with like 280 or something like that. So I'd say Perriman's been probably one of the biggest disappointments of the year, other than OJ Howard, of course. But
Yeah.
really not having that true slot guy or number 3 guy, it's really hurt the passing game. And I think one could make the argument that it definitely hasn't helped Jameis Winston out.
No, absolutely not. I mean, he's relying on strictly those two weapons. Quite game for Cameron Brate, though. OJ Howard had 5 catches, just like Perriman. So glad to see OJ Howard back out there. 5 catches, 61 yards. I think, like I always say, I always thought he was a great pick. I thought he was a very talented receiver slash tight end, great blocker. But he just, and last year he kind of gave us a lot of glimpse of hope of last year. But this year, but also, I'm going to also blame it also on Bruce Arians' system. As you go back to his years with the Colts, his years with the Steelers, and his years with the Cardinals, I can't think of one tight end on any of those teams there. So, I mean, he never really utilizes tight end. He's more using them as a pass protector and, kind of create for the run there. So it's just part of the system there.
So you think Bruce Arians is having that big of an impact on Byron Leftwich's play calling to the point that he's not utilizing the tight end? Because that's interesting, especially with Bruce being out of the league for a couple of years. I know Byron's a newer offensive coordinator, so maybe he's trying to guide him or kind of give him the foundation.
Last year, Byron Leftwich was on the Cardinals, and I think they fired their offensive coordinator like halfway through promoting Byron Leftwich offensive coordinator. So he only has like maybe 8 games of experience, 9 games before coming to the Buccaneers. And over in Arizona, they didn't really have any like prolific or proficient tight ends to really utilize like they do here in Tampa.
Right. So, different story in the ground game. 17 attempts for Peyton Barber, only 44 yards. It's good for a 2.6 yard average, but he had 2 touchdowns on the day on the ground, which is probably the most we've had in a while in the rushing game. So again, really nothing to talk about in the rushing game per se.
And what about Ronald Jones? 6 carries, 8 yards. Remember last week you were really excited about him, saying make him the man, give him the ball, and we really had a good outlook for him. But he was pretty much non-existent in this game.
Non-existent, and rumor has it that he was actually benched for the rest of the game, missing a blitz coverage. So essentially, Bruce Arians in his post-game conference, he was asked about RoJo, and he's like, "Well, you miss a blitz coverage, you're not playing." And I think he said that Peyton Barber was the hot hand, so that was his argument for sticking with Peyton Barber. But I'm still a big
2.6 average is not that hot.
It's not that hot, but I think that it goes to the offensive line play. The offensive line play was mediocre at best, and pretty much poor. I mean, does Jacksonville have a good front four, front seven? I mean, yes, but you know, it's still something that we should have controlled the line a little bit better than we did. Defensive star, of course, kind of a coming out party for Devin White. 7 total tackles, 1 interception, and he returned a fumble for a touchdown. So great to see him in on the act. He was flying around out there. It was
Yeah, he's looking
defense
really
looked just really defense looked great. The secondary uh, again just continues to grow and grow. So kind of what went well. I'm really impressed by the secondary, and I know we were dogging them, month or two ago, just like
good.
what is going on at the secondary? Do we have the right guys? And I'm glad that we kind of level set, and it's like, hey, these guys are first and second round draft picks over, just the last 2 years. We got to give them some time, and I think we're finally starting to see these pieces come together. Sean Murphy-Bunting had a great game.
Yep.
A really key interception. I mean, the Minshew magic was working. They drove down the field again, and luckily we were able to capitalize off a lucky bounce and pick that off. Though I was worried. I thought he was going to pull the let me run out of the end zone, let me run back into the end zone and give him a safety. But thankfully, he made it back out of the end zone because I thought he was trying to take a knee after leaving the end zone.
And that was a crucial point in the game too, because if they would have thrown, Minshew would have thrown a touchdown there, they would have been down by 7 and down by 1 touchdown. I would have probably could have shifted a lot of momentum there. Um, Make one more stop, and I mean, Buccaneers were not able to score in the second half. They just had a field goal in the fourth.
3 points, and that was the late field goal at the end, basically when they forced a turnover on like a 4th and 25 or something like that. So they just kind of went 3 and out and kicked a field goal right there. But yeah, they could not score at all in the second half. Whatever defensive adjustments were made by the Jaguars definitely worked. And I think that's something that we will talk about in a moment of what didn't go so great is, our second half adjustments and why we struggle with finishing games. But definitely wanted to talk about Devin White's coming out party. I think we both have talked at length of how excited we are for him. I mean, at least not initially. I know your guy was the other Josh Allen. But I think I'm definitely more and more convinced that we have a potential generational player here, and really the start of something special, perhaps again, given that Jason Light makes some similar draft picks like he did in 2019. I think 2019 will prove to be his strongest draft of his GM career. So we'll see what happens in 2020.
Looking like that so far for sure. Devin White, I mean, he's got great speed. He can read the coverage well. He plays like he's a middle linebacker, plays like a defensive back, and he's got great size. Also, if you want to break it down a little bit more, look at the run stopping. I mean, Leonard Fournette, one of the better running backs in the game. 14 carries, 38 yards is all he had all game. He did get 9 catches for 53 yards. He was just averaging 5.9 per catch, so we were stopping him when he caught the ball. No touchdowns. We were able to hold him down, and that was pretty much the key difference there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know selfishly I was just wanting a garbage time Leonard Fournette touchdown for fantasy purposes. Thankfully, I didn't need it. It's happy to see them come out. Let's look at some of the stats of the game on our second screen here. Of course, Buccaneers have a couple key drives. They had about a 70-yard drive and a big 83-yard drive. I think really important is just 1 touchdown drive for the Jaguars, and I think that was coming off. It might have been off one of the turnover or Jameis Winston's fumble. So again, short fields always seem to be an issue for the Buccaneers, and thankfully we were able to force a turnover with Sean Murphy-Bunting near the end of the game with about 5 or 6 minutes left to avert that crisis there. But I went over some of the key stats here. Winston again of 268, being under 300 yards. Bucs forcing 4 turnovers, I think, which was crucial for just maintaining momentum and making sure the Jaguars really never got into the game. And then again, controlling the clock with over 33 minutes of time of possession. When I was looking at the stats, I was kind of impressed by this, though. they were showing almost a sellout in Jacksonville. Maybe this might have been the closest they've been to a sellout in a little bit, and definitely Bucs Nation was well represented. Lots of red in the stands in Jacksonville.
Nice.
So let's talk about maybe what didn't go so well. So what went not so great, we've ranged from what went fucking terrible to what's not so great. I think the offensive line play, again, just a little bit of a disappointment here. Really no running lanes. We really struggled. Jameis, I think, went down.
Hey, for the offensive line, what looked good was Vita Vea when they put him in at fullback. And,
right? That man could do it all. He looked great making some holes there, but our traditional offensive line, I think, really had a hard time even protecting Jameis Winston. I think he went down maybe 4 or 5 times. Don't quote me on that. How many times he was sacked in the Jacksonville game?
4 times.
Austin
4
has
times.
seen
I thought
its
it
share
was
of
4
changes
times.
lately. At Equinor, we believe change is good.
But we got to their quarterback 5 times. So
right. And it was Shaq Barrett bringing the heat again. 2 more sacks, getting him to 14.5, which leads the NFL. So again, I think I don't know if I want to say we've solved the secondary problem, but I think we seriously have to consider what we do on the offensive line, whether it's through free agency or, again, spending another high draft pick on a solid offensive lineman. And honestly, the way we're going, if we end up, 8-8, we're gonna have a middle of the road draft pick anyway, and it might be we might be able to get some value in there, either with a tackle or maybe another guard.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you feel about Ryan Jensen's play.
Nah, he still hasn't been well at all for the contract he got and the expectations that we brought him in.
Absolutely.
Or he's been a very big disappointment.
Absolutely. So again, that's something we have to look at too, how well we're anchoring that offensive line at the center. But overall, fairly well balanced game. Really concerned about the second half though, like you brought up, no scoring at all. I mean,
nope.
This is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Definitely not. They're not a world killer defense. I don't know if we just kind of went conservative, or I think the time of possession shifted a little bit back in Jacksonville's favor, because we were dominating for that first half.
It's like we almost game planned only for Nick Foles, and
that's a great point.
Gardner Minshew came in and kind of like messed up our entire defensive plan. He's a little bit different player. He's a little bit more mobile.
Yeah.
I would even say he's probably slightly a little bit more of an accurate passer as well, in my opinion. But yeah,
I don't know.
Nick
You
Foles,
could feel that momentum change though. It's almost like the team came together. It's like, oh man, Minshew's back. Let's get ready to roll. And I mean, Jacksonville looked more confident to me, honestly. With
they had Uncle Rico.
Uncle Rico slinging the footballs over their mountains, of course. So, standings. I finally had to do some work on this slide. I was really excited to see that.
Oh wow!
Bucs are being recognized as second in the division now at 5-7, due to head-to-head and NFC records.
Split with the Panthers.
Right.
I think beat the Falcons. Because the Panthers are 0-1 against the Falcons, so it could have a shift here if they win this weekend against the Falcons. So We'll see what happens.
We'll see where they put us. But for right now, second in the division, had to flop them there. And then NFC leader all of a sudden went to the Seattle Seahawks.
Oh, wow. They got the tiebreaker, both 10-2.
Yeah, so, and actually, we probably need to put the Saints there, too. I think the Saints would be considered the 1 seed with the Seahawks at 2.
Because the Saints beat them with the that's when Teddy Bridgewater came in and finished the game.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, so 1 and 2 there. Your 3 and 4 seeds are going to be, who is it? Green Bay right now at 3, and then whoever ends up winning the NFC East at 4. It's going to
Cowboys as of today
could potentially be a team at 8-8 by the end of the year. And then 5 and 6 are going to be, of course, San Francisco right now, and then I think it was Minnesota was up there, right? The Vikings at 6.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So that's what the playoffs are looking like. Of course, the Bucs not mathematically eliminated. A loss next week probably gets them closer to to death watch for the playoffs. I mean, we all know that the playoffs aren't going to be a likely scenario for us this year, but it's nice to dream. Nice to dream a little bit.
Playoffs? You kidding me?
So
It can still happen.
yeah, go ahead.
I said it can still happen. They got the Colts, who I think, not as strong as, we anticipated. I mean, we got the Lions, who are playing on like a third string quarterback. We got the Falcons left and the Texans, which the Texans are the one that kind of worries me the most. Looking at our defense keeps playing the way it played the past 2 weeks, and Jameis don't throw interceptions. I mean, I think we can beat the Colts, Lions, and Falcons again. Texans here in Tampa, that's going to be a really tough one, but hey, if we win out, I mean, there's still that potential. So
yeah, I'm really liking 8-8. I still feel we will lose a stupid game and end up at 7-9, but we'll close out the show talking about what we think the final record's going to be and what we consider a success. But what's next? You mentioned it. The Colts are in town. It's been a while, probably 8 years since the Colts have been here. I think was Peyton Manning still playing for them the last time they were in town? Pretty sure 8 years ago.
8, yeah, that would be 8 years. I'm
I
trying to think.
Was the last time the Colts were here in Tampa.
Nope. It was Curtis Painter.
Please tell me he didn't beat us.
He beat us. Pierre Garçon had like two or three touchdowns. I mean,
the curse of the backup quarterback. It's such a true thing. Perfect. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Curtis Painter. Yep.
Curtis Painter beat us, but of course we'll have the ageless wonder Adam Vinatieri with their kicking threat. I don't know if Marlon Mack or T.Y. Hilton are going to play. T.Y. came back last week, I think.
Yeah, Marlon Mack, I think he's out. I think what's his name? T.Y. Hilton is questionable, but still hasn't practiced yet, so it's looking unlikely that he'll play this week.
So I think that's what gives us a little bit of a shot here is a few of their weapons are down and out. Eric Ebron's on IR. So again, it just depends on how the game plan goes and if we're able to score more points. I know that sounds super obvious, but we need to make sure that we are playing well and that Jameis is again not turning the ball over. So that's what we have coming up on Sunday, 1 p.m. start time for the Bucs in Tampa against those Colts. And then of course we'll close it out with our hot topics, and I wanted to throw it out there. I hope we're really truly seeing something special with the defense, but what do you think is, from what we know, what do you think is our defensive ceiling? Because I want to be optimistic and say, hey, we've got a couple superstars that are going to be growing up right in front of our eyes in the next few years, but I mean, are we kind of overshooting that, or what are your thoughts on right now on defensive personnel?
I still say, I'm still worried about our defensive line because, Vita Vea, I think he's one of those brewing superstars. Same thing with Devin White. I think those two guys have been showed a glimpse of stardom, but I just don't know if we're going to be able to keep Sue and keep JPP and Shaq Barrett. I'm not sure how that's going to end up there. I still think I know our secondary looked pretty good the past 2 weeks, but I'm still not sold on them. I think if we can get Vita Vea, Devin White, make those our two superstars. We keep forgetting about Levante David. he's been a Pro Bowler for like the past 5-6 years.
You're right. The initial Pro Bowl voting came out, and he's like not even in the top 10. Maybe we can close out on what a sham Pro Bowl voting is, but he's not even being considered because he's not a household name.
Yeah, but he's been a very solid defensive back that we kind of forget now a little bit here. But I still think a defensive back is still the kind of like where we need. If we can just get one safety, I don't know, just something back there that we can rest. I don't know what word I'm looking for. I'm just saying, be that guy that we know. Hey, that's our man. I think we'd be pretty set on defense. But right now, we really don't know. Carter Davis one day, Sean Bunting one day. So kind of see where we end there. I can't even name our safety. Who's our safeties right now? I can't even think of them.
Yeah, that's a great point. We'll have to look at those rosters. At least gosh, who is it? Not Carlton Davis. We have man, my mind is
Like
slipping.
Whitehead or something.
Yeah, my mind is slipping on that. Uh, but big news, of course, coming now. Kind of the day after Bruce Arians, of course, saying the obvious that the decision on Jameis Winston won't happen till after the season is done. Kind of an obvious deal there. I'm still putting my money on he'll be back next year, whether it's a short-term deal or franchise tag situation, which I'm kind of okay with. I just I don't know. I don't trust the three quarterbacks that are really the high ticket items out there to come in and make an immediate impact. I don't know. Maybe you feel differently.
Yeah, I don't think if I had to put money on it, I don't think he's coming back. I think he did his audition with Bruce Arians. I don't think Bruce Arians personally sold on him. He really doesn't meet that prototype quarterback that Bruce Arians ever used to seeing with him. In Pittsburgh, how he did with the Colts and how he kind of did with the what's the other team called?
Cardinals.
The
Cardinals.
Cardinals. He likes the veteran quarterbacks or pocket passers and that don't turn the ball over nearly as much. But James Winston, if I had to bet, I don't see him coming here. I do see him signing a deal. Just not with Tampa. There's teams like the Chargers that could probably go after him. There's a couple other teams out there. I wouldn't be surprised if possibly even the Raiders make a move for him, knowing how much John Gruden liked him. But I do see James Winston signing, a decent deal, probably in the mid-20s. But I just don't see it being here in Tampa. I think this is where Tampa tries to make a move, either get that bridge quarterback, change it up for the fans. Because think about it, how the fans have been the past 3 years. You extend the same with Jameis Winston, I think you're going to lose a pretty decent fan base. You got to make the move. I know I discussed with you possibly like a Phillip Rivers to come in here. He has good weapons. Maybe draft an offensive lineman, maybe sign another one and give him some protection. Let him be a bridge quarterback, draft a rookie in the second or third round, and let them, kind of sit behind Phillip Rivers for a couple of years. That's kind of like, and I think Phillip Rivers actually meets the Bruce Arians prototype quarterback that he likes as well. So that's just my opinion from now, but what do I know? I'm just here at home behind a mic talking about the Bucs.
So yeah, we'll see how this plays out. I mean, again, I wouldn't be sad. I think I'd be okay with a one more year for Jameis, provided that we made some moves on the offensive line. So there's truly no more excuses. I'd be okay. I would give him one more year. I think he's played okay enough. I know we have the big board right behind me, 20 interceptions. I think
fumbles.
It's 9 fumbles. I don't know. I just think it's somewhat of a little bit of a aberration. I don't know, man. I think he's just had a weird year. To answer your questions on the safeties, yeah, Jordan Whitehead and Mike Edwards are your guys. Right now at number 1 on the depth chart. And then behind them we have Andrew Adams and Darian Stewart. So those are your guys with Carlton Davis, Sean Murphy Bunting are starting corners.
Sure you're not reading the XFL roster?
No. Maybe a few of them might be heading that way. I'm not sure. Jamel Dean playing nickel. I guess he splits time also with MJ Stewart as well. So we'll see what ends up going on there. Big news was it yesterday with Ron Rivera? Kind of a surprise being fired by the Panthers. The Redskins are 2 for 2 on getting
Riverboat Ron.
Riverboat Ron. Redskins causing 2 coaches to be fired so far this year with Jay Gruden and now Ron Rivera. I guess too much. Ownership couldn't handle it anymore. How do you feel about this move? A few of us, I know we were chatting yesterday of like, oh, why could this have happened last year? I would welcome Ron Rivera with open arms
for
here.
Sure. Definitely one of my favorite coaches in the NFL, and he is a defensive-minded coach, and Carolina started. I don't know what happened, but they started the season like as a top defense because I had them on my fantasy team, and I was getting like double-digit points for like at least a good like solid 6 or 7 weeks. And all of a sudden their defense started deteriorating the past couple of weeks, losing to Who did they lose to last week? They lost to the. Who did they lose to last week? It wasn't someone good. They lost to the Redskins this week, which is pretty bad. But
Yeah,
maybe
gosh, who was it last week? We'd have to rewatch the tape on
I
$10
think
Sports. I know they cost me a loss there. Who did they lose to? I forget. We'll have to look up Week 12
I think they won
stats.
week 12, but they lost the week prior. Let me see. I have it up.
I don't know. I thought they.
Oh no, they lost to the Saints.
Yeah, they
31
lost because they lost, and I think we doubled down on our bets this week for Carolina, which we'll talk about on $10
Yeah.
Sports later on. How we're like, oh, there's no way
Yeah.
Carolina's going to destroy the Redskins. There's no
That was
way.
a 4-game losing streak.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that they lost to the Packers, Panthers, Saints, and Redskins.
yeah. It's kind of a weird lineup of teams there and to lose. I don't. Maybe they were on their way out, but I just think it's odd that your only source of offense is in the running game, which let's be honest, early 2000s NFL just isn't going to work anymore. So I think CMC, of course, generational player, but you just can't depend on a running game anymore when you have Kyle Allen as your guy. I mean, who's playing receiver for them? Curtis Samuels.
Yeah, DJ Moore.
DJ Moore. I mean, Greg
Greg
Olson's 50 years old. I mean, it's not Ron Rivera's fault. I just feel that was kind of a weird move. But someone's going to be very happy next year.
Yeah.
Probably the Dallas Cowboys. That's going to be really interesting. And how about he ends up in Atlanta? Because
Atlanta is another one.
Atlanta might be another a place for him as well. It'd be interesting if he stays in the division. Just to kind of
Worst case scenario, he'll probably end up being defensive coordinator somewhere. Worst case scenario.
Yeah, he has a job, and Jerry Jones maybe he's crazy enough to make a deal already and firing Jason Garrett the day after the Cowboys lose their round 1 playoff game. So as we get,
I think if they lose Monday night to the Eagles, oh no, there's Giants and Eagles this week. Never mind.
yeah, Cowboys have the Bears, which. I mean, that could be an interest if they lose to Trubisky and the Bears. That could be the breaking point as well. They're favored. I think they're on the road and they're favored by 3 against the Bears.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there. It would be interesting to see if he ends up with the Cowboys. Who I think Freddie Kitchens is gone in Cleveland. Maybe that's what the Browns need. Is someone like Ron Rivera? Oh my gosh!
Yeah, good defensive personnel. I mean, good defensive players. Bring him in there, but I still am very suspected of Baker Mayfield. He kind of, I don't know. We're not seeing the same guy we saw last year.
Yeah, I think a little bit of fraud alert is coming up, and maybe what we thought was going to happen to Lamar Jackson is actually happening to Baker Mayfield, where the tape is out on Baker Mayfield, and the teams are reacting a lot better defensively to him. I guess his usual run and gun style, if you will. So as we close out our episode, again, thank you guys if you've been on the stream or you're listening on our podcasts. We appreciate you. Always feel free to reach out to us on Twitter as well, at $10 Sports or at Balls Brews Bros for MRod. Is this season successful? We know we're not going to make the playoffs. Let's assume we go 8-8. Maybe by the grace of the powers that be, we end up at 9-7, winning out. Is this season successful? I mean,
that's one of those things. Depends who you ask.
Right.
If some people will say no, some people will say absolutely. We brought a new head coach, et cetera, et cetera. We won more than 5 games for once. So yeah, me personally, Bruce Arians, first year coach, but the personnel really didn't change much. So I guess I'll be on a little bit more pessimistic side and say the season was not a success, based on the weapons we had. I know the offensive line didn't play up to our expectations, but given the weapons that we have on the field, Mike Evans, O.J. Howard, Chris Godwin. Our running game is not where it should be, but our defensive line, front 7, I would put them up there, one of the top in the league. I'd say with all that personnel and all that talent we had on the team, not finishing above 500, I think, is a slight disappointment, which that's just my opinion. But some
No,
people would disagree with me and
yeah,
say that it was a success. So.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, we really, I think, the results that we've gotten from Ndamukong Suh and Shaq Barrett have exceeded expectations. So I don't want to say that we loaded up on defense like the Rams did, or they tried to do. I think we got really lucky that Shaq Barrett exceeded expectations. Ndamukong Suh and Vita Vea is really coming into his own. But I mean, probably 2 of those 4 pieces are not including Vea. I think Carl Nassib came back this week. And JPP,
exactly. Well.
Yeah, and we talked about of the big 4, or, who we probably end up with maybe 2 of those if we're lucky. Not sure. JPP is probably going to have a value deal, just because he's aging. So 2 of those 4, if we're lucky to keep those, and then we got to again scrounge for values to really plug those holes, because I think we're going to be paying some money for either a bridge quarterback or hopefully some offensive line help or secondary help. So that is it for our show, everybody. Thank you so much. It's been week 13, our recap, and getting ready for week 14 against the Colts. Reminder, you can always watch our live shows or pre-tape shows on our YouTube live channel. Just search for Balls, Brews, and Bros. Buc'ing Hangover on your search results it's gonna pop up as well. And of course, podcasts now, so you can listen to us on your car. You can actually ask Google Home, and I haven't tested it on Alexa, but I know Google Home, you can say play the Buc'ing Hangover, and actually finds it and will play it for you. So you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, search for us on Spotify and Google Podcasts as well. Make sure to follow me on $10 Sports. I'm always throwing up the great GIFs and some good retweets as well. We've had some good ones recently, especially with the release of the XFL jerseys, and kind of getting excited for the Tampa Bay Vipers with that as well. And then following MRod on Twitter, Balls, Brews, Bros. He's been active on there as well. It's been your host, Moose, and MRod. Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight.
Looks like there's a problem.
We will see you next week. Take care.
All right, have a good night. Thank you for listening.
Touchdown, Tampa Bay, fire those cannons.
Oh, my.